are still tuned into Prime Live, and we had a little conversation yesterday when it comes to observing Autism Awareness Day, and that is celebrated and observed today. And I hope you learned a lot from the conversations yesterday. And we're continuing on the conversation today with an incredibly talented artist, Clayden Botes, who is an artist who has a passion for art and has blossomed into a flourishing business. Now, Clayden comes from humble beginnings, but his unique and beautiful creations are now featured on the prestigious Ernie Els Foundation's annual Golf Day auction, and they will be raising funds for autism in South Africa. And what an amazing opportunity we have. Good evening, Clayden. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for putting me on here. I really appreciate it.
I think this is such an inspiring conversation and such an important one at that. I mean, we had conversations yesterday, surrounding the stigma as well as a much needed sense of education and awareness that needs to be infiltrated into society when it comes to autism, what it's like living on the spectrum, and the opportunities, especially for young families who perhaps have a young child who was diagnosed, the opportunities their child can there have. And here you are being such a beacon of hope and inspiration. But let's start off our conversation by talking a little bit about navigating living with autism, as well as discovering your love for art.
Well, with autism, I always viewed me being an artist and me being autistic as one thing that happened early in my life. When I discovered, art was the exact same time I kind of discovered autism. I always somewhat, was told I was autistic, but only early on in my life, when I was a little bit older, I think 12 or 11, I'm not really too sure, I was told again I was autistic. And through my past, many times I had no idea I was autistic, and because of that very reason, I felt somewhat alienated from the other kids, and I was a little bit bullied because I knew I was different, but I didn't know why I was different. And when I was told I was autistic, it kind of lifted a weight off my chest and made it far more easy for me to understand why I act a certain way. And with art, it was kind of a way of me coping when I would get bullied. It was one of those things I ended up doing to help me both with one, my anxiety, two, me being bullied, and really, allowed me to express myself through a way I haven't really explored too much. And here I am now. I've spent quite a lot of my life doing art, and I want to use it as a way to spread the word of autism and talk more about autism and, show my art in the process.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and what an inspiring one it is at that. And I think, what you've been able to do, I admire so much what you were able to do with your platform and taking the difficulties that you have experienced and using it and turning it into something beautiful. And more importantly, I think you're such an inspiration for young children who are still navigating the idea of living with autism, what that means for them, and finding where their passion projects are. But let's talk about your thriving art business. When did you realize that art can be so much more than just a fun hobby and, a form of escapism for you? When did you realize that this could be something really big and I could actually make good money from this?
Well, when it comes to being an artist, it only came to me that I could make something out of it when COVID happened. Of course, everyone was stuck inside, couldn't really do anything, so I ended up spending all my time doing art. In school, I couldn't spend too much time doing art. I had to focus on the assignments, but when I had so much free time, I ended up deciding, hey, I can give this a try and really put all my effort into it. So I spent all my time doing art, drawing, and slowly start realizing that this could be something that I could do in the future. So slowly over time, I started, trying to improve my craft, get better at it, and I have realized that art can be a way for me to make an income and even talk more about autism. My number one goal, I actually have many goals, but the biggest goal I do have is to talk more about autism and have people know what it is. Because the most important thing for the autistic community is for the knowledge of it to exist out there. I understand not everyone knows what autism is, but people knowing what autism is can make things much more easier and better for the autistic people.
Absolutely. I think what you've mentioned there is so incredibly important. And just having conversations yesterday with two of our guests talking about the importance of creating awareness when it comes to autism is, of course, educating people on what it is. Understanding what autism is can, remove a lot of that stigma that is associated And removing misconceptions as well is very, very important. And like you said, for the sake of inclusivity and for the sake of people who are living on the spectrum to have a better experience in public spaces, in schools, and feeling more inclusive is such an important thing. And I really love that you've chosen to champion this alongside with your art. And we did get to see some beautiful visuals of some of your pieces. Can you talk to us about what are some of your favorite mediums when it comes to your self expression and your art?
Well, my most biggest favorite medium has to be digital art. It's been something I have been, improving upon for such a long time, but it's digital art and also tattooing. I really want to pursue the idea of tattooing and one day becoming a traveling tattoo artist. And it does align with me wanting to travel the world and talk more about autism. So it's kind of a win-win situation. But my most favorite mediums have to be digital art and tattooing. But there is one art medium that has pioneered my journey, and that has to be traditional art. Drawing on paper, drawing with Copic markers, that really is the thing that drove me to becoming an artist to begin with. So I do have to make a mention about traditional art, using Copic markers, using pens, paper, using pens, all that type of stuff. Because you don't need digital art to become an artist. You can just use a pencil and a piece of paper and still be able to create art. But personally, for me, my favorite art medium has to be digital art and tattooing.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very, very interesting. I love to hear, people making use of the technological advances and moving art into a digital platform. I think that's a wonderful idea and a wonderful experience as well. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience in creating the art piece that is going to be auctioned at the Ernie Els Foundation's annual golf day? Now, we know that this is going to be a fundraiser as well, so can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the O'Neill's fundraiser, I believe, happened about a year ago, and the entire process of creating it was I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have any inspiration until I saw the O'Neill's Foundation. I Googled O'Neill's Foundation, found a picture, and I fell in love with the terrain, the building, and how colorful everything was. Just seeing the fields, I loved it so much. I decided, hey, why did I do a, you know, illustration of it in a landscape type of way? So I ended up taking Ernie Owls and did an entire painting, and I could have went the realistic route, but I decided to just, simplify it as much as I can to show that with autism, they see the world in a colorful way, but in a way that's far more simpler than many people see the world nowadays.
Absolutely. I think what you've pointed out there is incredibly important is that people who live on the spectrum of autism have a very different perception of how they see the world. And mostly, from what I experience anyway, it's a much better version in your world than it is in mine. And, I think this is such a wonderful opportunity for you to create this much needed sense of awareness and hope and inspiration, especially for young children who have perhaps just received their diagnosis. And like you said, as a young child, navigating and understanding what you have, understanding autism and understanding, how to live with it as well. But, there's a unique opportunity now. If you had a message to share with young families or maybe young children who have just been diagnosed, what advice would you have to share with them from your experience of living on the spectrum, and what can they do differently that you would have liked to have done when you were younger?
Well, for me, there's nothing I wanted to be changed because the my mom, she accepted me right from the get-go. When I was autistic, she accepted the fact, and instead of, forcing me to read and write even though I can't, she accepted that fact and just let me become an artist. The one thing I would say to autistic people and parents is one thing: accept. Accept that you're autistic, because the fact is autism is you. You are autistic, and that is who you are as a person, and that's okay. Yes, you may not be able to do certain things that other people can do, but the best thing about autism is people that are autistic can adapt, and the thing that they can do, they can get really good at. So even though you may be autistic and may be a little bit frustrated that there are things in life that you can't do that everyone else can, the fact of the matter is you are autistic, and that's okay. Just accept and love yourself through, for who you are. And I always accepted myself. I always knew I was autistic and loved myself for it. Of course, in the early years, I didn't know I was autistic and didn't know why I was different. But I slowly got comfortable with the fact that yes, I am different, and it does, make my quality of life far better, and I'm far more happier that I know that.
That was very, very powerfully said. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you said there is so incredibly important. And when it comes to anyone who is on the spectrum of autism, what I've learned in my experience is that people on the autistic spectrum are incredibly gifted. And you are the prime example of that. You can be incredibly, incredibly gifted, whether that be at mathematics, whether that be at art. And that is the beauty and the benefit of having autism as well, is that you're given all these beautiful gifts that other people don't have. And in closing, we have to ask you, how can our viewers keep in touch with you? Are you on any social media platforms? And what can we expect from you in the future when it comes to future art pieces or maybe future events and endeavors as well?
Well, I have a Facebook, and I have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I'm even on YouTube Shorts. And the tag is Clayden's Design. So if you search up Clayden's Designs on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, you'll find me on there. And currently, I'm working on my own project. Of course, in the past, I did work on other collaborative projects, but for now, I'm busy making a comic book for myself. I always wanted to, write stories and, one day become an animator, but the fact is, do not have those resources. But what I do have is the ability to make a comic book. So I'm also including technology so it can read and write for me and write everything I need. So I am currently working on a comic book right now. If you want to know the name, it's The Desolate, and also there will be more details about it on my social media pages.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I mean, what an exciting thing too, and what an exciting endeavor to go on as well, to have your very own comic book. And we absolutely are so sure that you are going to be successful in whatever you choose to do next. But Clayden, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for this wonderful conversation, for your voice, and for the platform that you have created for people on the spectrum of autism, and for using your voice and your platform to create such a big need or such a big sense of awareness when it comes to living with autism and the possibilities, the endless possibilities that one can have living with autism. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on here. I really do appreciate that I can, be in this space and really talk about and, really talk about the experiences I went through with being autistic. And it is important to know about it because it can, make other people's lives far better. And as a parent, knowing why your child is acting a certain way can be, difficult to understand, but slowly over time, when you live with your kid and realize why they act certain ways, it can make it far more easier. And knowing the reason why, and it can make it just better for the person and also the child.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us, Clayden. Viewers at home, that was Clayden Botes. I do hope you feel inspired and motivated by our conversation today. I think he's doing phenomenal things when it comes to creating awareness for autism and showing people who are living with autism, children and adults, what the endless possibilities are on living with autism. I think he shared such important information and such important insights for young people living with autism and adults as well, and sharing his journey on how he navigated living on the spectrum and is now running a wonderful, successful business. And, just getting some of those visuals of his beautiful art pieces. Please do give him a follow on his social media platforms. And he did hint that he is going to have a comic book launching soon. So do keep your eyes peeled on his social media platforms for more information. But on that note, it is time for us to head over to a quick ad break, and we'll come right back.
It's